All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Week 8 of the Fantasy Life. As always, I'm the Big AC Andy Chevalier, here with my partner, the Portuguese Prince, Chris Dacosta. Coach, how was your Week 7? How'd you do?
Week 7 was Heartbreak City. I went 2-1, and in the league I had to win, which is a half-point PPR, I lost by 7 points to
Ooh,
my brother, who won on an Odell Beckham touchdown pass at the end of the game. I had him beat.
no.
I had him beat, and he ended up beating me by, like I said, about 6 or 7 points. So in that league, I am 1-6. But 2 games out of the playoffs. It's like 3
Coach,
teams are
hey,
just dominating,
if
and
I've,
everybody
if
else is
I've
like
learned
3
anything,
wins.
if I've learned anything, it's never over till it's over. Went 6-7 last year in my regular season. Won the championship. As long as you get in the playoffs, get your foot in the door, anything can happen. Coach, it was a dream week for me last week. Almost went the incredible 6-0. Le'Veon Bell put up a monster night. Needed to avoid 27 points. He scored 28 and a half. Almost did the unbelievable. Went 6-0. But 5-1, it was great. Won a couple of in my must-win leagues, so
It's
it was
always
awesome.
good.
It was awesome, Coach. We have an awesome show lined up for Week 8. Let's talk about some hits and misses, Coach. What were your some of hits and misses from last week?
So some hits. Zach Stacy, as expected, not even a carry. I believe in you, Tre Mason. I believe in you. This is a guy that I wish I could have in keeper leagues, but I was a hit there. Um,
Coach, really quickly, let's talk about Tre Mason, because we said it first last week. We were
that's
on the
right.
Tre Mason bandwagon. We were saying, hey, this is this year's Zach Stacy from
hmm
last year. Zach Stacy did the exact same thing at the same point of the season last year. And we said, look, I think this is a good high ceiling type of guy to get him now before you go bananas. Zach Stacy didn't get a carry this week. He's healthy this week. Tre Mason's the guy. I mean, Ben
And
Cunningham, he's still lingering with a tiny injury. I think Tre Mason going forward is going to be the guy. I don't know. What about you?
I agree. I was just gonna throw in that my 2 cents about Benny Cunningham. Good. I think he's a good player. He's looks like he's used more in the passing game, and St. Louis is going to be up in a lot of games late, so Benny might get some more touches late in games. But yeah, Zach Stacy is in my eyes a distant number 3 right now. It might even be a healthy scratch for this upcoming Sunday. So we shall see. We shall see. Another guy I had on my hits
Who else?
um,
Who else went bananas for you?
was Torrey Smith. So as I said,
That's right, Coach.
said, sell him high, but wait until this week. Now the week has came. 2 weeks in a row, 80 plus yards and a touchdown. A little more confidence for owners. Decent matchups, but tougher matchups moving forward. Now that you would think, I think Torrey Smith, now's the time to try to ship him off and try to get something for him. But last week had a good game, and train him now is not sustainable.
What do you think about their matchup this week against Cincy, Coach? Cincy, about middle of the pack, letting up against the air attack, but Joe Flacco's been slinging the rock. Steve Smith, Torrey Smith, one of them seems to go bananas. Do you like Torrey this week?
Um, you know, since his defense has been a little underwhelming, but I still believe, kind of like Carolina's defense, they have a good core. They have guys with pride. Um, they can't have 3 straight terrible games. They've had terrible games against New England last week as well. I don't see it being 3 in a row. Do I think Baltimore moves the ball? I do. I do see them move the ball pretty well, but I don't think I start Torrey Smith this week. I really don't. I think, again, it's time to ship him off. Steve Smith's your guy. Now, interesting news, though. Owen Daniels isn't playing this week.
This is true.
Maybe that changes things, or maybe it gives guys like Marlon Brown an opportunity to shine. Who knows? So that does change some things around for me, in all honesty. But their running game, again, Justin Forsett's catching balls in the backfield, and we glow about him every week. I don't know. I ship off Torrey if I can.
Coach, I had a couple good predictions last week too. Cordell Patterson scored a touchdown. I was feeling it. I just felt like the matchup was there. That being said, it wasn't anything that great. What do you have? 2 catches? Yeah, 2 catches, a touchdown. Still not doing that big return game that we were hoping for. He's still a bench spot for me pretty much every week.
Absolutely.
The matchup could not be more luscious against Tampa than it is this week. So he's a flex play at best. I would totally understand if he's in your lineup this week. But moving forward, I don't know. I mean, I felt he was getting the touchdown last week. He did. Also, last week I was not feeling the running backs, though. I was not feeling Asiata and McKinnon. 4 points for Asiata in PPR, 12 points for McKinnon. His value is pretty much only in PPR leagues, Coach. He's the only guy I'm really considering going forward,
Mhm.
especially in PPR leagues. Asiata, a bench spot. I could understand the drop now, but in standard scoring, I guess Asiata's somewhat, I guess, an idea of a starter. But McKinnon, he's going to be the guy for me pretty much every week. I mean, he's got to, right?
I agree. And McKinnon is a guy I like to keep. Uh, Look at the divisional matchups he's got coming up. Carolina, which we just talked about, hasn't been the best run defense this year. Losing Greg Hardy was huge for him and for them. The New Orleans Saints and Atlanta Falcons, you start your guys against those squads. So, and McKinnon's got talent. I think he's going to be worthwhile. The only thing I disagree with you on, AC, is Tampa Bay, Minnesota. I think it's going to be a compelling matchup this week. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But we'll talk about that later on in the show.
Yeah, let's talk about more about that. Also, was not feeling the running backs from Atlanta. Hey, I was 2 for 2 with bold predictions. Antoine Smith didn't score a touchdown. It's possible. He doesn't score every week. How about that, Coach? And Steven Jackson, only 3 points. Detroit doesn't let up anything on the ground. I mean, come on.
Speaking of the Falcons and hits and misses, one of my misses was Roddy White.
Oh,
This
so
guy is messing with
frustrating.
me. I benched him for Anton Smith this week. Thank God I still won in my league. But I benched him. He goes off. I play him. He goes terrible. The week I bench him, he goes 9 for 100 and a touchdown. Come on. But, that's what he's going to do. I'll let you guys know when I play him. That means you should bench him, and when I bench him, you should play him. So there you go.
We're also off about Jordan Cameron. I mean, come on. The guy
Yeah.
did the week we were hoping for. 1 catch, 5 yards. Come on. I guess he's just a flash in the pan. I don't know. I mean, it sucks because the guy's got so much talent, and the offense is doing well. So I don't understand where the problem is. I mean, I guess Hoyer's just not liking him. What do you think?
If there's a silver lining here, the Browns only scored 6 points last week. So it wasn't so much Jordan Cameron didn't show up or Hoyer didn't have a connection. Their whole offense was not clicking against Jacksonville.
Andrew Hawkins, though, over 100 in the air. Bunch of catches. I mean, how do you explain that? Why isn't that going to Jordan Cameron?
Hawkins is Brian Hoyer's safety net. I don't know if you watched much of the game, but they were getting to him. The Jags were playing with pride like any other team that hasn't won a game in what seems like years. But Hawkins is a guy that, he's a safety blanket like most tight ends are for other quarterbacks. He's running short curls, quick slants. He did have a big day with 1 monstrous catch that I think went for 50-some yards, so he had 4 catches for 100 yards. Hawkins is that type of guy in PPR leagues. He racks up some points. But yeah, hopefully it's not an outlier. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but yeah, I don't know. Cameron's again one of those guys that I just don't have faith in. Maybe I have to start him, but when I do, I'm really nervous.
More
so
star power than anything. I feel like at this point, it's like the name. You're starting him because it's Jordan Cameron. It's
exactly.
How about another guy that you love, Anquan Boldin? Only 12 points last week. We thought he'd have a much bigger game. I guess 12 points is kind of okay. We were hoping for more against Denver, but going forward, I mean, he's got to be the guy, right?
Do we have to talk about the Niners-Broncos game?
Ooh, no, Coach. That's right. You're the Niners guy.
I think, honestly, the Niners receivers, it's a carousel. 1 week it's going to be Q. 1 week it's going to be Crabtree. 1 week it's going to be Stevie. And Stevie and Anquan Boldin are the red zone guys, but Vernon Davis is back. Fantasy-wise, they're not bad guys to have. They're capable of having a good week, like Q had a couple weeks ago. Crabtree had 2 weeks before that. Stevie, the last few weeks, he hasn't had too many catches, but he's scored. So you never know where it's coming or how in San Francisco. Frank Gore's been frustrating. The only guy that's worth having week in, week out is Kaepernick. He's a top 8 quarterback, I believe. So I don't have, again, it's one of those things where I don't have confidence rolling out those guys as a Niner fan or a fantasy fan, but not a bad guy to play in your flex if you got Anquan, Stevie, or Crabtree. I think you can do much, much worse.
Don't forget, Bolden is getting the targets. He's getting the catches. So he does have his value. He's as close to the most reliable target in the air right now for the Niners. Let's do some starts and sits, Coach. I'm going to start off with a guy I talked about a lot recently. I called him a ham and egger a couple weeks ago. but I'm a big fan right now. Lamar Miller. This guy's kind of a must-start for me. He's getting the rock. He's going to touch the ball at least 20 times, Coach. And here's the thing. Jacksonville is one of the worst statistical defenses. The guy has been solid every single week. I want to try to get him in at least every league I could. I tried to get him last week, and I wasn't really successful in any leagues in trying to get him. He had 20 touches for a total of 80 yards, and he had 1 touchdown. Expect great things out of him this week. And remember, there's no Sean Moreno. Lamar Miller, you got to start him this week, Coach.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, Lamar Miller's the guy he's a running back one now. No more Moreno, like you said. The Dolphins, they're not a bad team in all honesty, and their offense is starting to get a little bit better with Ryan Tannehill, which we're going to talk about. But Lamar Miller, yeah, you got to be starting him week in, week out. I think he's a solid, unbelievably so, but a solid low-end RB1, high-end RB2 even.
Coach, let's talk about Ryan Tannehill. I know you wanted to talk about him. Is he a guy that you like this week?
Some guys respond well to pressure. Ever since Coach Phil basically did not back him about 3-4 weeks ago, he's been, I wouldn't say letting it up, but he's been consistent. 17 points, 20 points, 23 points. Pretty easy math, but averages 20 points a week over his last 3 games. He's thrown for a touchdown every game. He hasn't thrown for more than 1 pick. If you're going to put out a quarterback that's not guaranteed, but pretty much guaranteed to put up 20 points, not a bad player to start, especially if you got a guy like Kaepernick on bye this week. And going up against Jacksonville, which I know just made Brian Hoyer look a little foolish, but I don't think that holds up against the Dolphins. I think Tannehill has a good game on the road, but really up the highway in Florida to Jacksonville. I think he shows up and puts up above that average of 20, maybe 25, 28 points this week.
Yeah, since that week after week 3, Coach, since week 4 going forward, he's had 2 touchdowns in all of those games. Only 1 game he had multiple interceptions. So yeah, he's been pretty rock solid in leagues where you get 6 points for throwing touchdowns. He's put up at least 20 points every week, which is pretty good. I mean, if you get a 20 spot out of your quarterback, what else can you really ask for?
Exactly.
Especially at Ryan Tannehill. So yeah, he's exactly what he said. He's consistent. He's not going to put up the Peyton Manning numbers, and his ceiling isn't that high, but his floor isn't really that low either. So he's going to be pretty consistent. I am a fan of consistent guys. I don't like going for the home run or nothing. I like getting those ground rule doubles. I'm okay with that in fantasy. Speaking of guys who's been pretty consistent, Mohamed Sanu. Last week he only had 3 catches for 57 yards, so not double digits in PBR, but he's facing a decent Baltimore defense. But I'll tell you what, they give up a lot in the air, especially to team number 2s. If A.J. Green plays, I definitely like Sanu, and it doesn't look like A.J. Green's going to play. But that being said, I still think Sanu's going to be good. Look, Reggie Wayne, Roddy White had one of their best games of the season against Baltimore, and they're the team's number 2. If you're a talented number 2 receiver, and I believe Sanu is definitely a talented guy, expect a lot out of him. You're not going to beat Baltimore on the ground. You're going to beat him in the air. The Red Rifle is, I think, going to air it out a lot this game. I think he's going to have to. I think Gio and Jeremy Hill are going to struggle, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. But I like Sanu going forward. I was a fan of him since week 2, and I think with A.J. Green out, it's now his show.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Sanu's the guy that, especially with Marvin Jones out too, he's at least the number 2 option. And since Tyler Eifert's out for a while, Jermaine Gresham hasn't been doing much. Who else are you going to throw to? And if you believe in volume, if you like guys that are just the guy, Sanu's not going anywhere. He's been healthy, and when he has played, even in sparingly, he's shown up. He can even surprise you with a throwing touchdown, which is always nice to see a receiver do that. But yeah, Sanu is another one of those guys where you got him, you got to roll him out. Double wide receiver 2 for sure.
I completely agree with you, Coach. I mean, it's funny how in a lot of fantasy leagues, it's been a little frustrating kind of figuring out who to start every week. I'm going to give you a great example. I know you love this guy, DeAndre Hopkins out of Houston. I get a lot of Andre questioned, a lot of Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins this week. Who are you feeling this week out of Houston, Coach?
I know he hasn't been on any highlight reels as of late, but if you watched last Monday night, DeAndre Hopkins, he had a good game. He had More than 5 catches, 100 yards, but he had a costly fumble late in the game that cost his team a win. And for me, I like guys like Hopkins after they do something like that, because after you feel like you lose the game for your team, you're focused, you're driven. Coach O'Brien's been talking about him, saying that he's been first guy in this week, and I feel like he's got something to prove. Maybe this is more of an intuition, a gut feeling, but you just cost your team a game. You have a huge division matchup coming up against the Titans, which is a game you must win as a 500 ball club team as the Texans. They're starting their third string running receiver.
Yep.
So they're going to try to take advantage of opportunities there by trying to force the ball downfield and try to win this game early and fast. I think it's one of those games where DeAndre Hopkins shows up and tries to show that he's a professional and he can rebound from this. He's a talented guy. Either way, Andre and DeAndre, to me, they're right here. They're equal pretty much every week. But I think this week DeAndre is a guy you want to have some more faith in than you probably feel right now.
I like them both, Coach. I definitely like them both. But here's the thing. DeAndre Hopkins, he's had double digits every single game. Andre Johnson isn't 100%. He's questionable right now in the injury report. DeAndre Hopkins has had double digits. He's had no touchdowns since he scored 3 out of his first 4 games. But he's been pretty consistent. Indy kind of really put up a stinker for him, and that was a game I told a lot of people to start DeAndre Hopkins. But he just came off a 100-yard game against Pittsburgh. I like him against Tennessee this week. I think you will not be disappointed in starting DeAndre Hopkins. Speaking of disappointment, Coach, I can't even believe I'm going to say it. Here's a guy I think, honestly, is not must start, but pretty darn close. He deserves a flex spot. If he's in your waiver, I think you got to pick him up. No, this is not 2008, 2009. Darren McFadden. Run DMC. Can I say that with a straight face right now? Did I lose all credibility right now? Run DMC. The show has reached a new low, Coach. Here's the thing, though. Since the bye week, since Oakland got rid of their youngest coach in the league, 14 carries in both games, 80 yards against San Diego, 48 and a touchdown against Arizona, and those are both some of the best run defenses in the league. He's facing Cleveland, who is awful on the ground, Coach. They are awful. They let up over 100 on the ground in 5 out of their last 6 games this year. 6 touchdowns in 6 games. DMC's getting the rock. He's catching some passes. Coach, I mean, clearly MJD's Maurice Jones-Drew is not a factor right here. Run DMC. Am I crazy right now, Coach? Has the show lost all credibility? Or do what I'm saying have any merit?
I think so. I'm a little heartbroken because losing to my brother by 7 points, as I mentioned earlier. He's a Raiders fan, and he also started McFadden. So before that ODB touchdown, I was up big because the Run DMC touchdown came right before it. But aside from that, that hyphen in MJD is pretty much his career now. It's over. Unfortunately, he's in Oakland, the black hole. He's not healthy. He's not fast. It's not happening. With Darren McFadden, Sperano believes in him, and he believes in the old reliable. I don't know if you remember the last time he was a head coach, but that was when Reggie Bush was going off in Miami. He believes in running the football. And I don't know if you've noticed who the quarterback is in Oakland. A talented young guy, but still a rookie. Sperano's from the old school. He's running. He's using the trenches, using the O-line. I think your point's valid. He's a little fragile, so I don't know how much more carries he's going to get. But in this day and age in the NFL, if your guy is getting you 14 carries in back-to-back games, I think you take that, especially for a high-end flex, low-end RB2 even, in Darren McFadden. Yeah, I agree with you, AC.
I love him this week, but don't fall in love with him, people. He's never had a season where he's played the entire season. So just throwing that out there. Don't fall in love with him. He's going to let you down. He's like Eli Manning. You're love that you're bringing him to the dance, but he's going to break your heart. Trust me. Let's talk about go from one of the older, more veteran running backs to one of the younger running backs. Bishop Sankey. Coach, I'm not feeling him this week. What do you think about Bishop Sankey this week?
8 for 27, 18 for 61, and 16 for 56. Those are his totals for the last 3 weeks without catching either. So Sankey, it's been a disappointment. You know, guys, people that drafted him probably were pretty excited. I feel like he was one of those hot rookie names that people drafted a little earlier than they should have. Like I know I wanted to draft him, but I knew I wasn't going to overdraft him. So thankfully other people in my leagues were taking him. and they saved me a headache. He's not going to be a must-start. We talked about the Texans this week. J.J. Watt and that Texan defense, pretty good run defense. There's a third-string running back in front of Bishop Sankey and Mettenberger from LSU. The Texans are going to load up the box with 8 people and dare this kid to throw the ball all day long. And mind you, Houston's secondary isn't bad with Joseph and Schwein, Switchberger, whatever his last name is. I can't think of it right now. But their defense is pretty good. I don't think they're going to be worried about one-on-one matchups against this guy. Sankey is not going to have a week. So obviously he's going to have a big week.
not gonna work here anymore, right? But no, and also another name I want to throw out there, Jadeveon Clowney might be coming back this week. So that's something else to think about.
And whether or not he's effective, you pay attention to him. So that's another. And he's intimidating. Just him out there is intimidating to players, I think.
Coach, I'm gonna make a bold statement this week. I'm gonna say I am not feeling the Cincinnati running backs. Now with Jeremy Hill, that's kind of an easier statement to make. He's the goal line guy. He's touchdown dependent. He's only had double-digit games twice this season in PPR leagues, and both were games where he scored a touchdown. He doesn't score a touchdown. He's kind of fantasy relevant. But Gio Bernard, can you really sit him? I think you can this week, and I'll tell you why. He torches bad defenses. That's been proven. 169 total yards and a touchdown against Atlanta. 55 total yards, but 2 touchdowns against Tennessee. 157 total yards and a touchdown against Carolina. All really bad defenses. All defenses he torched. But against solid defenses, against solid rush defenses, he struggles. 17 yards last week on the ground versus Indy. 62 yards on the ground against New England. 48 yards on the ground against Baltimore. All games where he didn't score a touchdown. And guess who he's facing this week? Baltimore. Again, the team he faced week 1. Baltimore gives it up in the air, not on the ground. Gio will get some of his catches in the air, but he's only had, I think, 6 total catches in the past 3 games. So he's not even getting it done in the air for you. So I honestly think you could bench him. I mean, I think he's a flex play at best this week. Coach, can you give me the seal of approval and back me up on this one?
Well, I fell asleep out of disbelief after you said that the Patriots had a good run defense. But other than that, I don't think I can. I'd go as far as say benching Gio. I could see you being worried about it, but I don't see him not at least being a flex play for you this week. I can't give you my seal of approval on this one. Jeremy Hill, absolutely bench him all day. But Gio Bernard, I have trouble doing that.
Coach, come on. I can't believe we're saying it. But we're gonna sit Anthony Dixon, Bishop Sankey, and Matty Ryan, and the Cincinnati running backs, Gio Bernard and Jeremy Hill. Sounds crazy, but trust us, folks. We're feeling it. Coach, let's do a little buy low.
Gio.
Yeah. Let's do a little buy low. Hey, I was right about Ronnie Hillman. I'll be right about Cincy.
Yeah, you're right. I was
sell high, Coach. Let's do some buy low, sell high. Talk to us some buy low guys.
One buy low guy I like, not as a person, based on some stuff you see in the locker room, but as a fantasy player, is Percy Harvin. Now, I'm coming to you from a standpoint of a frustrated fantasy owner. I've had him in 2 weeks in a row. He's registered no points. He's going to a new team, and this week he's not going to be – I don't think he's going to have a big week this week either. Now's the time I think you can get buy low from a frustrated Percy Harvin owner like me. Who's going to be getting the ball in New York? Chris Ivory's their only playmaking guy that I'm noticing. Sure, Gio a little bit here and there. But what do the Jets they need? They need a change. They need a dynamic, talented injection into their offense. Who better than Percy Harvin, a guy that can run the ball, catch the ball, be involved in special teams. Take advantage of that frustrated owner who's been getting bagels without cream cheese all season from Percy. Go after him, buy low, best you can.
Coach, I'm going to patent that phrase just so you know. The bagel without the cream cheese. I love that, Coach. Genius.
Yeah, you like that?
Who else you buying low?
This guy might not be a surprise. We've talked about him a little bit, but I think he's worth mentioning. A.J. Green, his next 4 games, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Cleveland, New Orleans, juicy matchups. Maybe he comes back this week, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he plays and is fully ready next week. Maybe he's not. His bye weeks are gone. He's not going to have time to heal aside from sitting out games. I think you have compelling arguments to make to a guy who's got A.J. Green in your league, or a girl, obviously. But these four defenses give up big plays. A.J. Green's coming off an injury. In all likelihood, the person that owns him needs to win now. If you're sitting at 5-2 or better, I think you can make a trade and take a risk on selling one of your high-hitting receivers right now, like Vincent Jackson, Deshaun Jackson, Steve Smith, even Julian Edelman. These types of guys to trade for an A.J. Green or somebody at a different position, of course. I think you're going to get better value in the long haul. You're more likely to make the playoffs, and if you can turn a Deshaun Jackson into A.J. Green or a Vincent Jackson into an A.J. Green for 4 weeks from now, and you can afford it, and you can play guys like Terrence Williams in that spot, they're on your bench, or Marcus Colston, which I know you're not a big fan of, or Larry Fitzgerald even. Can't believe I'm saying that. Then it's worth taking the risk to get a guy like A.J. Green. Are you trying to come in 4th place in your league, or are you trying to win the whole thing? Buy low to see if you can get A.J. Green from a guy that's 1-6 right now, 2-5, 3-4. Might be worth your while.
I couldn't agree with you more, Coach. It's definitely a win. It's definitely a winning move. If you want to try to win your league, you got to try to get an A.J. Green. This is a guy who, again, I said this last week. I think this guy, moving forward in the past couple of years, he's a top 5 wide receiver in the game. I mean, honestly, after Demaryius Thomas and Megatron, when healthy, Des Bryant, Jordy Nelson, Antonio Brown, he's in that group of guys. So, yeah, of course you want to get an A.J. Green. Just because he's been injured a couple of weeks, people are kind of forgetting, and he's not like the sexy Megatron guy where everyone's like, oh, got to get Megatron. He's at that same freak athletic ability level. I mean, there's only one Megatron, but A.J. Green is the 1A. I mean, if Megatron's 1, A.J. Green's 1A. And when he's back and healthy, he's the Red Rifle's favorite target. So I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to talk about sell high guys, and I'm going to talk about a couple of guys you've already mentioned. Let's start off with your least favorite guy, Roddy White. Hey, he's been super frustrating with owners, and he just had his big game. Now is the time to get rid of him. He just isn't the same guy. When you draft Roddy White, you're drafting to get those 8, 9, 10 catches a game, and he's just not getting that. He's got Detroit this week, awful matchup. He's got a bye next week. He's just not, and he's kind of an unstartable guy now in my opinion, minus PPR leagues. Like in PPR leagues, I guess you got to roll him out there every week, but you can't be doing it with confidence. And in anything less, you got to try to get rid of him. I mean, I'd trade him this week. He's got that star power name we kind of talked about when we were talking about Jordan Cameron. He's got the star power, but that's about it. There's going to be someone out there that believes in Roddy White. Maybe he's the old guy in the league who's, loves those old guys. He always drafts he drafted Maurice Jones-Drew because, he knows what he did in the past. He's a big Antonio Gates fan. He loves the old guys. You gotta trade Roddy White, right? I'm preaching to the choir here, right, Coach?
Absolutely. If you can dump Roddy White while he's on his high horse, he's been having nagging hamstring injuries, and as a wideout, it's not an injury you want to have a guy on your squad to have. If you can ship out Roddy White, which actually a guy in my league did this week, he traded him straight up for Nile Davis. Now, mind you, Nile Davis went to a team that had Jamal Charles, so it was a nice insurance policy for him. But he was looking to move him, and that was the best offer that he could get. And why not take some insurance for your number 1 running back who can become a number 1 running back? So he was that frustrated that he traded for a backup running back in hindsight, right? But I don't think that's a bad move at all.
All right, Coach, how about another guy you mentioned, Marquise Colston? He's another guy who's got that star power name. And I've been saying this. I'm saying the past game where he had 6 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. I said it here. That will be his best game of the season. You're not going to get anything better than that. Trust me. Jimmy Graham is coming back healthy. He's the guy in New Orleans, not Marquise Colston. I think Cooks is even better than Marquise Colston. I think Cooks going forward will outperform Marquise Colston. I think he's trade bait. I really would try to trade him add him to a deal and be like, look, Marquise Colston's the guy. There's going to be that guy in that league that remembers what Marquise Colston did, and similar to the logic with Roddy White. There's going to be someone out there that wants him. What do you think, Coach? Got to trade.
It's a tough one, but I couldn't agree more. Cooks is in the kitchen. He's the guy you want to have, especially in a PPR league. He'll have games where he'll have 8 catches for 40 yards, but hey, I think you take that out of your flex spot if it's PPR. He's got high octane ability. He's fast. He can be a stud receiver in New Orleans. Just he hasn't clicked quite yet. Colston is a guy that's what his ceiling is. It already happened, and if you can include him in a trade to make it a little bit more even, absolutely. I'm not as down on him as you are, I don't think. I think he's a guy that's serviceable for your squad. He's not a guy you're confident in starting, but this week's a good matchup with Green Bay. I believe when the Saints, anybody when they're on prime time, I feel like Sean Payton has that ego where he wants to just toss the rock around. But overall, yeah, I think Cooks is a guy you want to have moving forward, and if you can sell him right now when he's at his peak after a game where he was basically the #1 target, I would absolutely do that too.
Cooks in the kitchen. Coach, where do you come up with this stuff? It's beautiful.
Dude, I might be hungry. He cooks in the kitchen without cream cheese. I need to get some dinner, I guess.
All right, Coach, let's stop talking about guys we hate. Let's talk about guys we love, particularly a guy I love, and I know you're learning to love him too. People are asking me, what do I do about Ronnie Hillman? Do I trade him high? Do I hold on to him? He had 38 rushes for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns in his past 2 games combined. 7 catches for 45 as well. And that's against San Fran and the Jets, both really good teams. He just had a monster game, a pretty good game. He had 2 touchdowns robbed from him last night, so we almost had another monster game last night. I think he's won the starting job. I'm holding on to him. Coach, I know I can convince you. Come to the dark side. Ronnie Hillman is an RB1 moving forward.
Joanna Man was there. Juwan Thompson. No, I'm kidding. Yes, Ronnie Hillman. Ronnie Hillman's a must start every week. It pains me to say it, not because of UAC, because of Pat needs a pacifier Hartnett. He loves Ronnie Hillman. He was crying last night that his touchdowns got taken away, and it was enjoyable to watch him suffer. But unbiasedly, yeah, he's a guy you got to start. Low-end RB1, I'll give you it.
Coach, let's talk about another guy. So, again, just to reiterate, Ronnie Hillman, he's the man going forward.
Absolutely.
If someone's dumb enough to want to trade him high, I'd totally go get him. Alfred Morris, though, complete other end of the spectrum. He hasn't had a 100-yard game at all this season. He's only had 1 game where he's caught more than 1 pass. He's obviously touchdown reliant in PPR leagues. His value goes way down. I've been big on this guy all season long and been saying buy him low, buy him low, buy him low. Do you still have the faith? Rookie season, he was 2nd in the league in rushing. Sophomore season last year, he was 5th in the league in rushing. He's pretty consistent. Will Alfred Morris show us who he really is, the butler, or have we seen the best of him and it's only downhill from here, Coach? What do you think?
Ever seen Alfred Morris score a touchdown? Does that nice swing and looks out? You're going to see that twice this week. My bold prediction, Alfred Morris has 80 yards and a touchdown on Monday Night Football so you can all see it. Here's why. His success and problems are directly associated with his quarterback. When RG3's there, he's a stud. 2nd in the league, 5th in the league in rushing, gets the ball more. When Kirk Cousins has been starting, he's been non-existent. They just throw the rock a lot more with Kirk Cousins for whatever reason, and they get away from that running game. They get away from the option. They get away from play action, and they just throw the ball with Cousins. I think with Colt McCoy coming into the equation, it's Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
Great game last week. They're going to run the ball. They're going to nurse it. They don't want Dallas to get the ball, and they're going to run it down Washington's throat too with DeMarco. I don't think you're going to see a huge scoring game. It'll be your average NFL game with penalties that'll help scores be driven up. But I think this is going to be an old-fashioned 2 teams hate each other, running the ball, DeMarco versus the Butler show with Romo and Colt taking a back seat. I think it's a good week to play him and maybe gain some confidence moving forward when Colt, maybe McCoy keeps playing for the rest of the season or for until RG3 comes back, and when RG3 comes back, it's back to the Butler. So I like him. I still do.
You brought up an awesome point, Coach, and that's a rushing quarterback helps out your running back. And just, I mean, how many examples do you have to give? Like, honestly, like, clearly, when you have a rushing quarterback, you're going to have a successful running game. It's just what happens. I mean, that's why Frank Gore has been just way more successful than he probably should be these past couple of years with Kaepernick, Marshawn Lynch, with Russell Wilson. I mean, it kind of
Chris Ivory, Geno Smith right now.
Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith's kind of hot garbage right now. But, yeah, no, same idea. I see what you're saying.
But you planned for it, right?
That's right. All right, Coach, we've been talking about moves to give you that championship run. Here's a guy I might get the most questions about, and that's Josh Gordon. What do I do with Josh Gordon? Do I trade him? Do I keep him on my roster, or do I drop him to get a running back? I was not a fan of early on in the season holding on to him. If you're rostering him and not picking up like a running back, to add depth to your team, and you're just wasting a roster spot, I think that's awful. That being said, it's week 8. You held on to him this long. It's not a good. Why wait this long to drop him? I mean, and I've seen a lot of leagues where it's keeper leagues. People are starting to trade him to get amazing value, Coach. I'm talking like Josh Gordon for Eddie Lacy and somebody else, like somebody else fantasy relevant, just because people want him as their keeper next year. Josh Gordon, he's coming back, I believe, week 12, right, Coach? Something like that.
Week 11.
Week 11, he's coming back. He's got week 12 on. This is a schedule, Coach. Atlanta, awesome matchup. Buffalo, nothing on the ground, a lot in the air. Indy, Cincy, they let up stuff in the air. Carolina is just Swiss cheese right now in the secondary. Couple of nice matchups there for that Super Bowl run. Do you empty the barrel to get a Josh Gordon? What do you think?
It's one of those things where there's a big snowstorm. You've been in the house. You're starting to get stir crazy. You just want to go outside, but you shouldn't. It's not safe enough. Just wait another day.
It's not safe enough.
Wait another couple weeks. Keep Josh Gordon warm and cozy on your bench. He's going to be worth it. If you're a team, though, that needs to win now, there's got to be somebody. There's an owner in your league that will trade you the farm. Right now, I'm at 1-6 league. If I lose this week, I'm gonna just unload, and I'm gonna go right to Josh Gordon because it's a keeper league. It's a guy I can draft, and I think round 6 next year. And he's proven that. And he's not hurt. It's coming off a drug suspension, which is now restructured. So if you're worried about future suspensions, hey, you're not gonna make the playoffs this year anyway. Why not take the Hail Mary risk? Last year, this guy led the league in receiving, being out 2 games, and his quarterbacks were guys like Brian Hoyer, Jason Campbell, not top 20 guys before this season in all likelihood. He is a baller, plain and simple. Get Josh Gordon, trade the farm if you're not making the playoffs, and if you are a playoff team, kind of like that A.J. Green recipe, trade somebody you start right now, trying to get him because you're trying to win a championship. You're not trying to come in 4th or be safe when you're already a top 3 team in your league.
Coach,
I'm all in on Josh.
I have an interesting question for you, and this has happened in a couple of my leagues. In keeper leagues, in dynasty leagues, in leagues where it's you keep like 1 or 2 players, where do you draw the line? And I guess this is kind of established before the season starts. Where do you draw the line when teams are out of it? Say if they lost this week, they're 2-6, maybe even 1-7. They know they're probably not making the playoffs. Where do you draw the line on, hey, I know I can't win, I might as well trade everyone and anyone on my roster to get a fantastic keeper and say Josh Gordon. Say you can keep him in the 12th round, 13th round, something like that. Where do you draw the line on what you're allowed to trade to get a guy like Josh Gordon or any great keeper for that matter?
I think you got to be realistic, and I know it's tough to say. Let me give you an example. Like I said, I'm 1-6. I'm in this league towards the bottom in scoring, and I know it's a bad league. My other 2 leagues are great, but this league is not doing well. If you're towards the end of your scoring for the season If your matchups are you're going to be playing against the next a 5-2 squad, a 6-1 squad, a 500 ballpark, 500 club. If you're playing against the people that are above you, are in the top 6 already, maybe it's something to be realistic and think about next year a little bit. But if you're playing cupcakes, like teams that are below 2-5, 3-4 for the majority of the rest of your season, maybe you hold on to a little hope. I think this is the week where you can really start to see and make sense of who's a contender, who's a pretender, who could get in, who's on the fence, and you start to divide like the top 4, middle 4, bottom 4 in your league. After this week is the week to do it. And if you see yourself in that bottom 4 range, I think it's time. I think it's time to let go of 2014 and bring in 2015 with a copious amount of weed and Josh Gordon.
I see what you're saying, Coach. Here's an example. Like, I'm a commissioner in one of my leagues. One team who is clearly out of the playoffs already traded Brandon Marshall and Eddie Lacy for Josh Gordon and Brian Quick. Your thoughts on something like that? I mean, I'll give you my opinion. I want to hear what you think first.
So you said Lacy and Brandon Marshall?
For Josh Gordon and Brian Quick. Josh Gordon can be kept in.
See, here's the thing with trades. I think trades and leagues, there's 3 different ways of doing it. Where there's kind of no rules. You know, if a trade happens, it's between 2 teams, and if they agree, it's in and it's good. There's a league veto, which, you know, everyone votes to say if the trade's even or not, and usually it's a certain percentage, like a majority, has to approve for the league to go through. Or you have a commissioner's veto. So, you know, one person that I would hope your commissioner is the person you trust the most in the league to be unbiased and all that good stuff to make appropriate decisions. Now I'm the commissioner in 2 of my leagues. And if this league, which I have a keeper league, which you get 2 keepers and you draft them 2 rounds earlier than the position they were drafted. So Josh Gordon went in round 8. So if I kept him this year, I would keep him in round 6 of next year. Having said all of that, I think that's still too one-sided. You're trading a top 12 running back, a top 12 receiver for Brian Quick, and sure, Josh Gordon can make a big difference, and it's possible. And I'm a guy that's pretty liberal in the sense of trading. Like I tend to see what the 2 teams need and make a unbiased decision based on that and trust my gut. But if it's something like that where it's close, I'll put a league post out and just ask people on their opinions. I have an informal vice commissioner will ask his second opinion on things like that. But if it were me, that's a trade that gets vetoed. But if it was Eddie Lacy for Josh Gordon, if it was Brendan Marshall for Josh Gordon, if it was either one of those guys for Quick and Josh Gordon, absolutely, I think that is fine. You're trading a solid player for a risk, and that guy is giving away a potential high ceiling guy for a consistent player. But 2 basically undroppable players from a standard league list, that's just too much. That's, you know, I know Lacy's been down, but I think that's way too much.
Let's talk about that, Coach. I mean, this is the part of fantasy I love to talk about. And I'm actually gonna go into fan mail. This is a great transition. This was probably the best question we've had. My friend Jared Norton from Warwick asked, can you talk about how trades should be handled in the league and the best way to handle them? League vote commish or league vote or nothing at all? You know, something like that. What do you you kind of talked about that already. I'm going to talk about kind of my opinion. Here's the thing. I've done both. Where there's a league vote, a majority wins, and then there's the commissioner. And here's at the bottom line. I'm a firm believer that if 2 teams think they are improving their team for any reasons at all, who is someone else to come in and say, I'm smarter than you, you don't know what you're thinking, you don't know what you're doing, I'm vetoing this trade, you're making a bad deal. Who are they to come in and say that? They really, I mean, that you're kind of insulting the intelligence of people in the league by allowing a league vote. Now I will say this: if it's clearly collusion, it's clearly 2 teams talked to each other and said, "Hey, I want you to win the league. I have no shot. Here you go." Clearly, someone's got to step in and say something. That's why I think the commissioner should always be in charge of all league votes. The commissioner clearly knows everyone in the league, knows them on a personal level. Otherwise, why are they in the league? And they should be in charge of any type of vetoing. Any league I commish, I do a league vote. I do not do a league vote. Excuse me, commissioner in charge of all the voting. And I have never vetoed a trade. I've never vetoed a trade for the simple fact I've never seen a scenario where two teams are just simply dumping players to one another, saying, "Hey, I want you to win. I don't want to win." Both teams, in every instance, I believe, are trying to help their team, whether people disagree with that or not. Hey, don't join the
Right.
league. You join the
Right.
league agreeing to the terms. Then don't play the league. That's kind of
And
how I view it. I think it should always be commissioner vote. Also, for the simple fact, if you do a league vote, people can vote to veto a trade for reasons other than it's unfair. They can
right.
vote it. Hey, I'm
I'm
facing
playing this.
Brandon Marshall this week. I don't want to face him. I'm going to veto this trade. Since it's anonymous, no one will ever know it was me. So because you can veto a trade for any other reason besides the fact that it's unfair or you think it's collusion, to me, that's why the league votes should never be allowed. It's not an issue of trusting everyone in your league. It's not anything like that. It's a matter of the fact people are trying to win the game, and they're going to do whatever it takes to win the game. And if they're allowed to veto a trade, there's not a stipulation. There's not a veto a trade, provide an explanation. I've never seen a league like that. Commissioner should everyone's trusting the commissioner with the league money. The commissioner should be in charge of trusting all of making decisions on whether this is collusion or not. Otherwise, allowed every trade. Really quickly, what do you think, Coach?
I applaud that. I 100% agree. If there's a league vote or a league veto, no trades happen. You can't have no rules because it'll be pandemonium and you'll have a lot more collusion. And as a commissioner, everything you said was right. I only do commissioner vetoes as well. I've never vetoed a trade either. One thing that I did change for this year, after speaking to everybody beforehand and everybody agreeing on it, or majority decision agreeing on it, was to move the trade deadline a little earlier by a week, just to see that way you're not trading when you're totally done and you don't get trades like that. Because last year there was a questionable trade. It wasn't like two guys for one. There was a 4-player for 5-player deal that sent like LaShawn McCoy, Kaepernick, like guys that were doing really well to a team that was already in the playoffs, and that team ended up winning the championship. So, and it was between two brothers. But I allowed it because I didn't see that there was collusion. It frankly helped both teams, but I could see how it was perceived a certain way. So we moved the deadline a week earlier so that teams couldn't unload like that for keepers. Because the other guy got a good keeper. And
Super reasonable.
Michael Floyd and Cordero Patterson.
Super reasonable. Very, very reasonable. We're running really short on time, Coach. Really quickly, also, Jared had another question. How do you handle leagues? What's your opinions on a league that gives you an automatic 0 if you start an injured player or a bye week player, if you start someone who's on bye or if they were declared out? What's your thoughts on leagues? And I've played in a league, actually, where this is the case. You get an automatic 0 for your entire roster if you start a player on a bye week or someone who's on the injured reserve list.
We've all been in leagues where there's that person that does not pay attention, and it's one of those things where you just don't invite that person next year. And in my opinion, that's their squad. They run it. They're the Jacksonville Jaguars of the league. They're the Browns. They don't have a good GM, and that's what it is. And you don't invite them back to the league next year after you talking to them and say, hey, you got to play every week. Does it happen where like a guy like Reggie Bush this week is questionable, and then last second he gets hurt? Like last year in the snow game against Philly, he got hurt before the game and was out right before the game. That's tough. I don't believe in automatic 0s. You should be happy to play somebody that does that. You take that victory and run with it. And if you win with the guy on bye or injury, then bravo to you. I don't believe in the automatic 0, to be honest with you.
If you're playing for money, I don't think you should do an automatic 0. Just come on.
That's true.
There's no reason. Like, it's kind of an overkill. Just do exactly like you said. Just don't
you should
invite
beat
him back
that team.
year. If it's hurting the integrity of the team, just don't invite him back next year. That's what it comes down to. Another question, Coach Justine Burke from New Jersey.
AC.
There, you're back. All right, we're back. We're back in the action. God, it's
Speed
got to be
round.
my internet. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, everyone. Anthony Dixon or Bryce Brown? Who are you picking?
For this week and this week only, Booby Dixon, I would sit him normally, but he's the guy that knows the game plan. Knows the plays a little bit better, more confidence from the coaches. Long term, Bryce Brown all day long.
I'm going Dixon this week, too. Another question, Coach. Ken Baum from Rhode Island. Vincent Jackson versus Minnesota. Or Deshaun Jackson versus Dallas. Terrence Williams versus Washington. Pick two.
That's one of the tougher questions I think we've gotten. For me, I think I go Vincent Jackson for sure against Minnesota. Deshaun Jackson is benched, and you play Terrence Williams. I just think Dallas's offense is a little stronger than Washington's. Deshaun is a tough sit, but he's a sit.
Sorry.
I'm here. I go with Vincent Jackson. I think he's the one of the three that you must start. You also go with Terrence Williams, and you bench Deshaun Jackson this week, which might be a tough sit, but you bench him. I have more faith in Dallas's offense than Washington's. So Terrence and V-Jax for me. How about you?
I agree with that, Coach. I agree. I'm definitely choosing a different internet connection next time, Coach. Don't worry about it. Last question, Coach. Buddy Mark asks, half-point PPR, got to start these four. Steve Smith, Jeremy Maclin, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Deshaun Jackson, and Reggie Wayne. What two get the sit? I'm sitting Reggie Wayne because he's definitely not playing. So basically, who are you sitting? Deshaun Jackson, Fitz, Hopkins, Maclin, or Steve Smith, Coach?
I think I'm playing Maclin, Steve Smith, Hopkins, and who are the other ones? Fitz and who? I missed one.
Fitzgerald, Deshaun Jackson, Hopkins, Maclin, and Smith. Steve Smith.
I'm sitting Larry Fitzgerald and Reggie Wayne. Those are the two that I sit.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Folks, I apologize about the internet connections. I'm going to choose a different spot to do this. Maybe it's just where I am in my house right now. I don't know. Folks, that's going to wrap it up here. We had an awesome show. I wish it wasn't split up like this. Check out part one. I'm going to post that earlier. I'm actually going to try to mesh these videos together. I think YouTube allows you to do that. So I'm going to try my best to make that happen. If you watch the live stream, I appreciate that. If you have any questions between now and Sunday, don't forget, folks, the game's in London. So you get your football early, 9:30 Eastern. How awesome is that, Coach?
It's like being on the West Coast.
If you're on the West Coast, you're starting football at 6 a.m. Doesn't
awesome.
get any better than that. That's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. All right. Any questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll answer them before Sunday. Until then, I'm the Big AC Andy Chevalier, that good-looking guy who's going to flex and show us his muscles really quick. Show us the guns. There we go. Wow.
Kaepernick.
Pulling the Kaepernick. Good luck this week, Coach, in fantasy. Good luck to you viewers out there. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck. We'll see you next week for Week 9.